Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. You'll notice it looks a little bit different in here, namely myself. Today you get a very dressed down version of me in my PJs with a baseball cap that is covering my very obvious bed head from lack of getting ready today and a complete lack of makeup. The reason for that being is I had zero intention to leave my house. Instead, I was going to be working on accessories, pieces, and prosthetics for my transformation that I plan to film tomorrow. The transformation that I'm intending to film is actually the Egyptian bastet. Now, if you don't know what that is, and I really hope I'm not butchering that word, though I can't, really see a different way of saying that, so I'm going to assume it's correct. It is the Egyptian goddess of the home. It also involves domesticity, women's secrets, so of course it's a cat. So I started going through some of my stuff to see what I would need to make, what I would have to work with, and I have this prosthetic. Now you can see the packaging is torn open. It was torn open, it was never used, and there's a very good reason that we're about to cover. So this is actually by Ruby's, and I don't think they even make this specific model anymore. When I was browsing their websites, there's a totally different kind of cat nose on there now, and it may be because of the issues that we're about to discuss. So this is the prosthetic itself. I just caught myself on camera. This is very unflattering lighting when you're trying to not have real skin. Hopefully this shows up a little bit better. You can see it has very, very messy edges, which, you can smooth those out with layers of latex and stuff, but you can also see it came with the edges very perma rolled. See, that's completely rolled into itself. It's got very thick edges. This is completely indented. So when you see it's on the face, you can see it actually does have areas up here to glue and adhere down, but there is no physical edge. You can see where it's indented. It's completely floppy. It's just very flimsy piece of latex. And there's no edges for you to glue down and work with. So I figure if I'm gonna have to redo this anyways, why not make a video and show you guys how you can take a cheap prosthetic that is almost unusable or just has flaws going on and make it actually usable for your needs in ways that are actually pretty easy. It's a lot easier to do a lot of the things that I do prosthetic wise, which you're gonna see a lot more videos of that going down the road. If you have an actual replica of your face, this thing weighs a ton. I made this with a friend, but there's many ways. There's actually apps that you can scan your face and get replicas of your face and all of that. So I'm gonna go ahead and just show you. Mine has been sealed black, got a nice glossy finish. So this is the prosthetic in question. So I'm gonna try to show it from your direction to start with. You can see, even just laying it on there, you can see this side is folded. This side isn't too terrible, but you can see this whole chunk is missing. So yes, this can be adhered down, which actually makes a pretty nice wide nose structure still. But the rest of this just does not have any of those edges to actually go like this and kind of lay flat to your skin. Down here especially, it's all rolled under. There's just not much you can do with this. It's so flimsy. Even when you try to pop this out, it wants to sink it in. It's just not made well. It is just permanently rolled under that edge. So there's not a lot to do because it just deforms it when you start to do that. But there is a way around this, and it's very, very simple. So for this in particular, I'm gonna use just a few of those little disposable makeup sponges that we've all seen. And today I'm gonna just be working with the Ben Nye Clear Latex just because it's the one I have open. You can pretty much use any brand, and be careful when working with latex in case you do have an allergy. And then I'm gonna be working with cotton ball. So this is actually one cotton ball that I ripped in half and actually spread just to kind of make it flat, because I want to be able to puff out these little cheek areas. And this is easy to add layers of latex inside to stick it and adhere it and actually make this an inside piece, so that when you have it on the face with the actual cotton balls inside, it's able to hold its shape a little bit more. But we're gonna go even further, and we're gonna extend these edges out with layers of the latex, both underneath and across the surface, to be able to give it edges to adhere to our face. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can already see this wants to have an edge over here when the cotton balls are inside because it's being forced out there. And when this is adhered down, kind of centered on my nose, it does still have the good cat shape. So this is totally salvageable. So latex will actually adhere to itself. That actually helps. I just work with glass plates and stuff a lot, just so that I have the ability to peel it off when it's done. So it's pretty easy to clean up. But you're not gonna be wanting to work on carpeted surface or anything, because this latex, once it's in material, have fun, because it's just there for life. So we're gonna go ahead and take this latex, and what we're gonna do is just put a nice thick coat here inside the cheek areas. Now you're gonna wanna be careful, since the cheek areas are folded on this, that you're not gonna want it to touch itself, because even when this is dry, this is sticky and will adhere to itself. So we're gonna put a nice thick layer in there, go all the way to the edge, and we're gonna just let that part dry. So I'm gonna do the same on the other side. So we're gonna set that off to the side. We're gonna let that kind of dry. I'm actually gonna set this kind of in there just because I don't want that to fold on itself. So I'm actually just placing one of the foam pieces. It's just touching the back of this and that edge, but it's holding it to where it's not gonna fold on itself. So now to prepare these, we're gonna take some latex and we're just gonna kind of dab a layer onto this, which can be a hot mess when you are working with cotton. Let me tell you. It doesn't have to be super coated on the whole thing. I don't know if you can actually even see that since it's so bright and white on the screen. This latex dries quick, guys. So same for this. We're gonna go ahead and just mostly put it towards that center area because you're gonna want it to stay in place. Don't worry so much about the shape because we're gonna work with that once it's glued inside of there. So we're gonna go ahead and let that dry. Now that this has dried a little bit, we're gonna go ahead and stick these cotton balls inside of here. We're gonna just keep it in those little cheek areas. So latex does, like I said, it adheres to itself. So when you stick that in there, like this is in there now. So we're gonna go ahead and press that inside of there as well. Because the goal is ultimately you're gonna want to have a semi-flat surface here to go across your lip. If this is a little bit bulky, don't worry, because as we add the layer of latex across here as well to seal this in, it's actually gonna compress down those layers also. So I'm gonna go ahead, test it out a little bit on here. Okay, so already this is laying so much better on the face because these are nice and supported. And you can see this suddenly has an edge over here. It's that rolled edge that you were meant to use anyways. We kind of have more of an edge on this side, but we're not even gonna worry about those because we still have a long ways to go. So moving forward, we're gonna go ahead and add a layer of latex to seal this all the way to the edge, just so that this is gonna stay where we put it. I don't know if you can actually see that. It is wanting to bump out. If you touch this with your fingers, you're gonna glue your finger to it. So what helps is if you take your fingers and you actually stick it in the latex to get it wet, you can go in and you can start sculpting it with your finger to press it down as needed and keep your finger nice and coated in that latex, and it'll glide on the surface as opposed to sticking and pulling it forward and making the area worse. And I'm using my thumb underneath here to kind of support that rounded up shape. Otherwise you're going to distort the opposite side way too much and you don't want to lose that. So if you really want this nice and flat, just support those areas back behind it and you should be good to go. So we're going to go ahead and leave that for a bit to let that surface area dry before we move forward. Okay, I actually went and blasted this with a blow dryer for a minute so you can see it is touchable now. It would still stick to itself though if it were to fold for whatever reason. So what you're gonna wanna do, I'm gonna go ahead and take a loose powder and I'm gonna really generously tap this all over because it's gonna stick to that latex and it's gonna kind of seal it a bit. So it'll make it not tacky anymore. And every time you work with latex, every time you're building layers, you're going to want to either seal it between layers or at least in your final stage. I like to do it between layers because I feel like it helps build up the latex as well because it gives it something to build on top of and thickens it a little bit better. But you need to generously do that. Now it is not sticky and we have made a mess, so that's great. So we're just gonna go ahead and get some of this out of the way. We're gonna work the same process. I'm gonna take this prosthetic from my side and see. So now it is already, these two areas are nice and supporting themselves and it's given me a little bit of an edge, but this edge is junk. So this area in particular where there's little jagged areas, they're thick ball-like structures. So we're gonna actually trim that. Just a nice, it doesn't have to be even on both sides, but enough to where you have a cleaner edge to work with. Otherwise that's where you could potentially, especially removing this from the face later, that's where you could potentially get a tear. So what we're gonna do is trim that up. Already we got a huge difference, but you can see we did not even cut off a ton. It's just those little tiny chunks, but this prosthetic's already, those edges The little torn out area and stuff is so much cleaner. Okay. Trying to make sure that it's nice and centered. I really hope you guys can see this. Okay, so you can see we've now, like I said, we've got those nice puffy cheek structures. They're still not the strongest things in the world, but at least they have that support. We have a little bit of an edge over here. So what I'm actually gonna do is all the areas where I think I'm gonna have the prosthetic. So in this area, I'm gonna put down a layer of latex for this to adhere to, which I know sounds weird, but we're just gonna work with it. So everywhere outside where this is going to be is where I'm gonna go ahead and just do a nice thick layer of latex. And it's gonna be messy, and we're just gonna build this up in layers because we want something thick to be able to peel off ultimately when we're done. And I'm gonna dry it between each layer. So you're gonna keep this first layer very far out. You can see I've brought it pretty far outside of the prosthetic of where it's ultimately going to be. And we're gonna build up in layers, and we're gonna make it thicker and thicker as we go in. Okay, so now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm actually gonna put some latex around the inside edges of the actual prosthetic, probably about maybe a centimeter in around the whole edge to adhere down to this. I'm gonna go ahead and blast this with the blow dryer as well and then stick it down onto here. Now that this is nice and dry and tacky, I'm gonna go ahead and carefully put this position on the face where I want it to ultimately be when I'm wearing the prosthetic. So I'm gonna start with the lip area and then just work my way around those edges and press it flat as I go. Be very careful about this nose that is already super wanting to stick. So for me, I'm just lining up that center point, and then I'm just gonna work little sections around it and hope. Now if you find you get a folded area kind of like on here, I'm actually just going to work with some pointy tweezers, and I'm going to start peeling up, because it's okay if it gets a little bit messed up. See how it's wanting to pull up that other area, because we're going to be expanding this outward, so it's okay to pull and adjust because we'll smooth it out, so it's okay. So we're just going to work with it until it's where I ultimately want it to be when it's adhered to my face. Which I think I put this nose bridge a little too low for that side. Okay, we are making a mess, but that's okay because we're gonna smooth it out. And if you find like how I still just have this fold in here and it's just not right, so what I'm gonna do, and this is gonna seem a little crazy, but it's better than pulling this whole thing up, is I'm just gonna cut along where the new latex is. And then we're gonna build layers to salvage any of that. So if you mess it up, don't worry. Yeah, we're running out of prosthetic, but that's okay because we're gonna add all that back up. So we're gonna put a really generous layer up under here. Now we're gonna press that edge where you ultimately actually want it to be. And there you go. Much smoother edge. I'm gonna go ahead and start building up layers that overlap this out onto the face. I'm gonna work first with a Q-tip because I wanna build up a lot of thickness around that actual edge because I don't want it to shift and move. So I'm gonna build it really thick to kind of fill it in. Now if you have anything that's too indented, you can add some cotton into it as well and just get it really thick around that edge. And then I'll take a new clean cotton pad, I'll put it on one of the foam sponges, and I will press around that edge so that you're not getting a super bulky edge out that way, because you're going to want to blend out that edge, essentially, is what you're trying to do. That way you can get better edges in these areas, but then you're going to have more of an edge when we're done to work with. I'm not going to build up a whole lot in here, just enough to give it that little edge, because ultimately that's just going to mostly be cut away and be a free area that's not adhered down to my face. I'm more worried about these actual jowl kind of areas. Now for some of these areas that are on the bottom edge of the lip and around where it curves under a lot, you're not going to have a lot of edging to adhere down because those are not filled in. So we're going to go ahead while this is drying, and we're just going to take cotton, and you're literally just going to start pulling it apart so that it's loose fiber, and you're going to build up all that latex in those areas that you want to fill, and you're just going to kind of roll these into little pieces and stuff that you can use that as filler and put the latex on top and create that area that's indented, bring it to a nice smoother surface. So you're just going to put on a good amount of latex where you're wanting to build it up, and then you're going to just take little bits of fiber and then press them in. Try to really get that into that area as much as you can. And make sure that you are smoothing it as you go, because you don't want, the worst transition in the world. You still want that smoother transition to the edge. So you can see where that's filling that in now compared to this other side over here. So that's bringing it down to a smoother surface that can actually go out to an area that we can adhere down. So what we're going to do now is just take more of that latex, keep building on top of that, and then we're going to keep adding layers around the whole outside edge until it's a lot thicker and nice and even. Okay, so this is essentially where we've gotten to. You can see a lot of those edges are nice and filled in and around it. You can see where I've been building up the latex in layers and bringing it further and further out because you're going to want a thinner edge. A lot of this is going to get trimmed off ultimately, but now we have a prosthetic that actually can fit to the face, have a little bit more structure and support, and has edges to adhere down to your face to actually work for what you might actually need it for, and you can still breathe out of the nose holes. The only other step that I'm going to be doing with this is I will be powdering it like crazy once it's dry. When you peel it up off the face, you're going to want to kind of get an edge, and you're going to need to powder it under that edge as you go. You're going to want the whole thing powdered up. Otherwise, you're going to get that same process where it's going to stick to itself as you're rolling those edges. So just go slowly, guys, and you should be able to make it work. And you might be concerned that you're rolling your edge, but this is exactly why we left so much space around all these areas, because all of this is going to get trimmed off, and it is so thin. So you're going to have such a blendable edge. So you can see once you reach this point where you've kind of rolled it all up, you're going to take your brush and your powder. I really like angled brushes that have that little sharp edge that I can get up under with it. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking this very slowly, and I'm just going to literally push that brush underneath, and I'm going to keep powdering up as I'm peeling it. And you're going to want to load a lot of powder, guys. You do not want this to stick to itself. Otherwise, all this work you put into it is just done. And see, and this is where you're going to be happy that you brought this out as far as you did. So it seemed like when I was doing that, it was very excessive. But now, it's going to work out very, very well. don't want these edges to roll on you like crazy, so you gotta make sure everything is crazy powdered. You can see the section where your nose is gonna be, tons of room. We have not blocked access to the air holes whatsoever or even come close to it. So I'm just gonna keep powdering all of this. So you can see we've got all those nice little transitional edges are actually a lot smoother. And we can go in here, we can trim off all this really thin extra stuff. But honestly, personally, I like to leave it because then I can adhere down as much as possible, and any of this little rolled up stuff is what I can trim down after it is on my face. And that is it, guys. Now we have an actual prosthetic piece that has actual edges so that it can actually fit on your face, and you have areas that you can properly glue all of this down now. Whereas before it was writing along this very edge, so there was just nothing to stick to your skin. I can't wait to show you guys the finished product. Thanks so much for watching this video, and comment below. Let me know what you want to see. Make sure you got that notification bell turned on so you can actually see all the videos that are coming now that we are on a weekly schedule. And by we, I mean just me. I don't know, I have a habit of saying that from my business, so just me, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.